This is a cop in Ontario.
Epitome of a revolving door.
And this is just gonna, how it's not infuriating people is beyond me. But I think this is a few years old now. I remember seeing it a while back, but it's kind of resurfacing here.
I talk to people about the bail system, and they go, "Well, what do you mean they let hardcore drug dealers out that have guns on them?"
So they're letting them out when Pat King got 10 years, right? Or they tried to get him for 10 years.
Constable Aaron Crawford. We've been wanting to talk to him since we got here. And just before we need to head back, he gets the green light to go on camera. How do you describe what's happening here right now in Belleville?
I would say that this is the crux of poor policy and poor decision all come to a head all at the same time. You have a legal system that's incredibly soft on crime and on criminals. You have a mental health system that's, quite frankly, failing tax-paying and non-tax-paying citizens here in Ontario. And things are kind of at their breaking point. This is the result. You have people that are unmedicated, unwell, and they're medicating themselves with drugs on the street. Fentanyl, they're using fentanyl because they don't want to feel anymore. They're defeated.
He tells us he's been watching things go from bad to worse, knows most people by name, either because he's tried to save them or because he's arrested them over and over again.
I mean, if I charge someone for theft or mischief, they go to the courthouse, they get released because they're trying to fund their addiction. If I take them to the hospital, they don't get held because they're in a drug-induced psychosis. It just seems that there's just nowhere for these people to go.
We asked him about those concerns that the residents brought up, about the thefts, the break-ins, the vandalism.
It's either I bring them to court, get them charged or charge them, and they're not held accountable for the criminal act that they're doing. And again, I think it's because of out of reasons of compassion. But then they're also not being institutionalized. I could introduce you to a couple people probably at 60 Bridge who would ramble on and make no sense, would not be able to have a full-fledged conversation like you or I are having right now. And that's because of their mental health issues. And for me not to be able to bring someone to a place that can actually look after that person, because right now, that type of a person cannot look after themselves, and they are being left on the street.
So that's kind of like the crux of the problem, right? Is the liberals and the, that our nanny state here thinks that, they you can't tell them they can't look after themselves. They have this, you should be reducing the harm on them too. This whole harm reduction thing and the soft on crime. And can you imagine how this has affected the law abiding citizens of Canada, where you get something stolen, these people get let out, they steal again and again and again, like hundreds of times potentially, and the amount of people that's affecting, and yet they're just letting these. So this is not just like using drugs in the street. I mean, it's theft to fund their addiction, and how that affects regular people. I mean, the whole system has just failed us completely. And he's saying here like this, it's a revealing interview, TikToker, Ontario Police Watch. Listen to what he says about the justice system, its failed bail policies, and the revolving door releasing armed drug dealers back into the street, and of course, common criminals as well. I mean, how we can't be doing something with that, and there is nowhere to put these people, right? There's nowhere, there's no institutions. They got rid of all those in the 80s or whatever. So harm reduction's not working. The safe
like an asylum.
What asylum?
And like a sane asylum.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, they used to have like that where you'd go in for help, for psychiatric help, right? Or addiction help. I mean, it's hard to tease a what?
I'm with you. I'm not. We got a message.
And this is like something happened today in BC. Government provides update on pharmacy investigations, prescribed alternatives. So the province is taking action to prevent the diversion of prescribed opioids and hold bad actors accountable for putting people in communities at risk. The Prescribed Alternatives Program helps save lives by separating people at the highest risk of overdose from toxic street drugs and predatory drug dealers. It is one part of the province's work to address the toxic drug crisis. In addition to the expansion of treatment and recovery services, early intervention and prevention, supportive housing, and more. So we are committed to saving lives and getting the people who are suffering from addiction the treatment they need. Okay. In doing this work, we need to know that medications like prescribed alternatives are being used by the person they're intended for. So, dude, all this social media pushback seems to have been helping. They're actually addressing the fact that all this stuff is getting prescribed and then sold or whatever for other drugs. Like people are getting fentanyl for their regular opiates, or I don't even know the details of what drugs they're getting prescribed and what they're selling it for. But this announcement builds, I'm just going to skip to the end here. This announcement builds on the work underway to build a seamless system of mental health and addiction care to better meet people where they are at and provide them with supports at every stage of journey. This is why the province is taking actions such as enhancing overdose prevention services, supervised consumption sites, and drug checking. These services keep people alive, giving them a chance to connect to care and find a path forward. So that's why the overdoses keep going up every year.